An Ancestry test revealed that 4 out of 5 of my children aren't truly mine, but the truth behind that, I discover, was far more insidious.
Hey everyone, I'm David, I'm 52 years old. Until a few weeks ago, I truly believed I was the luckiest man in the world, with a dream family. But honestly, right now, I feel like my entire life has just been flattened by an earthquake. My wife, Sarah, she's 51, was my first love, my high school sweetheart. We got married in college, and for the past 30 years, I've lived with the absolute belief in a perfect fairy tale marriage, without a single ripple. We have 5 children, Sophia, Emily, Ethan, Grace, and our youngest, Lily, all wonderful kids, my pride and joy. I've always considered myself a loving husband and a father who always tried his best to give them everything. It's true that I've been quite busy with work, sometimes coming home late. Sometimes I even have to travel far from home for work, but I never saw that as a big issue that could affect my marriage. After all, I worked hard for the future of our entire family. And even though I was often away from home, I never, not even for a moment, doubted Sarah's loyalty. She was always my strong support, a model mother, always by my side, taking care of the kids for me. I thought she understood me best in the whole world. But then, in just the past 2 weeks, everything I ever believed in, every milestone I ever built, came crashing down. It's like waking up and realizing your whole life, 30 long years, was just a perfectly orchestrated, horrifying lie. A play where I was the only main character being deceived. Everything that's happened, I thought, only existed in movies. But cruel fate arranged for that tragedy to fall squarely on me. And it all started with my daughter. This is how everything began to unravel 2 weeks ago. My eldest daughter, Sophia, who is 33, came to see me. She looked so off, her face pale and her eyes glistening as if she was about to cry. She pulled me aside, saying there was something extremely important she needed to tell me privately. Seeing her acting and looking like that made me worry heavily. Sophia is my oldest and most cherished daughter, always so well-behaved and understanding. I couldn't imagine what could be wrong with my girl. Then she held out her phone. "Dad, look at this." I squinted at the screen. It was the result of a genetic ancestry test, the kind of thing people do these days. I didn't quite grasp it until she pointed to a particular line. When I clearly read what it said, everything in the world seemed to stop for me. I could distinctly hear my heart pounding, a cold dread running down my spine. You know, I can't even begin to describe that feeling. It was like the ground beneath me had suddenly vanished. I stood there, stunned, trying to process the horrifying information right in front of me. Sophia kept staring at me, her face etched with fear and anxiety, as if she thought I might do something terrible. Looking into the eyes of the precious daughter I had raised and loved for over 33 years, I instantly knew what I had to say. "My sweetheart," I tried to reassure her, though my voice trembled. "You will always be my daughter. That fact will never change, no matter what happens." As you probably guessed, the paper clearly stated that she and I had no biological connection whatsoever. But what I told her was also the absolute truth. Regardless of that result, she is still my firstborn, and she means everything to me. However, the pain was still painful. I felt like I was suffocating. Every breath I took was agonizing, as if the act of taking in oxygen to live was some kind of divine punishment. But then, amidst that haze of suffering, a thought flashed through my mind. Could this ancestry test be reliable? So immediately, Sophia and I decided we had to get an official paternity test. We kept it a secret, not letting my wife Sarah or anyone else know about this terrible thing. Both my daughter and I wanted to make sure the information was accurate because we knew this truth was nothing short of a nuclear bomb with immense destructive power. A few days later, my phone rang. It was from the lab. My heart kept pounding like a drum. I took a deep breath and answered. The person on the other end, after confirming it was me, began to speak, their voice steady and professional, like reading a report. But every single word that came out of their mouth was like thousands of shards of broken glass that kept cutting into my ears, causing unbearable pain. The test results confirm Mr. David, you are not the biological father of Ms. Sophia. This stark reality, it crushed both my mind and my soul. Right then, I couldn't hold back anymore. I cried. I sobbed like a child, each choked gasp and every tear streaming down my face, right in front of my eldest daughter. The agonizing pain of betrayal, of a terrible deception that lasted over 33 years, mixed with the shame of letting my child see how my weak father collapsed and broke down like that. I wish I could have been stronger for her, but I couldn't. I completely fell apart. That crushing pain, it suffocated me. But even as I drowned in that shattered sea, a thought 100,000 times more horrifying kept nagging at me. Was Sophia the only case? Or had the paradise I'd been living in all this time been rotting from the inside for a very, very long time, filled only with devils? I knew what I had to do. Immediately, I called my 3 other older children, Emily, 30, Ethan, 28, and Grace, 24, to meet me. As for my youngest, Lily, who is only 14 this year, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. She's too young, still in school. I didn't want her world to collapse just because of adult lies, at least not yet. Can you imagine how that meeting went? Tense, heartbreaking, suffocating. I sat there trying to piece together every word to explain to them what was happening. To tell the very children I had raised and loved with all my heart that their father might not be their biological father. That their father suspected their mother had been deceitful for decades, and that their father wanted to confirm which of them were not his biological children. In that moment, I wished I could just die. I rambled, stammering, unable to form words. I wish everything happening was just a nightmare and I could wake up immediately. Yet their reaction after hearing those murky words, it broke me again, but not from pain, but from overwhelming emotion. My 4 precious children didn't say a word to each other. They just simultaneously reached out and hugged me tightly, their tears all flowing, repeating one phrase: "Dad, you'll always be our dad. Don't be sad, we don't care." They didn't care who their biological father was, they only needed me. You know, in that moment, amidst the wreckage of my life, I saw a glimmer of light. The unconditional love of these children was like a lifeline keeping me from plummeting into the dark abyss. Not only did they not judge, but they were also my only support at that time. After that touching moment, I felt like I couldn't be drowning myself in the misery anymore. I had to be stronger for my children. I took a deep breath, then made the proposal I never wanted to utter aloud. Dad needs to be sure. Let's all get paternity tests." I looked at each of them, and they all nodded in agreement. It was a painful decision, but we knew it was the only way to face this truth. So we went for the tests, one by one. The waiting days felt like centuries. I kept telling myself it must just be Sophia. Maybe it was a youthful indiscretion for Sarah. I desperately clung to that fragile hope that my marriage could still be salvaged. I even regretted the decision to have all the children tested. I dreaded hearing the phone ring with that truth. But then, the phone rang. Each word, each result from the person on the other end was like a knife that kept piercing my heart repeatedly. I already knew Sophia wasn't my child, but Emily, also not my child. Ethan, also not my child. And Grace, also not my biological child. I completely collapsed. My heart tightened as if I could die on the spot. Do you understand what that means? 4 children. 4 of my children are not my biological children. 4 children whom I've hugged, put to sleep, taught, and loved more than myself. 4 children I believed were my flesh and blood, the result of the love between Sarah and me. But now it was all lies, nothing more than a deception. But that wasn't the most disgusting part. The next piece of information was something I could never have imagined even in my wildest dreams. I received the summary report. The results showed that my 4 children didn't just have one different father. They had 3 different fathers from 3 different men. At that moment, I was completely frozen. The blood in my veins ran cold. My entire body felt heavy, paralyzed, unable to lift a finger. This wasn't just simply a moment of weakness or an affair anymore. This was something much, much more perverse. My marriage to Sarah was a horrific chain of deceptions, meticulously planned and spanning decades. The disgusting truth was like a knife, twisting deep into the gaping wound in my soul. I felt like I was on a ghost ship heading to a land of the dead, and the captain was my wife. With the DNA test results in hand, I rushed home. My heart pounded in my chest. I still held onto a faint hope that it was all just a terrible mistake or that Sarah would fall to her knees, confess, and beg for forgiveness. I thought she would cry, that she would regret it now that the truth was exposed. How ridiculous. As soon as I stepped inside the house, I saw Sarah sitting in the kitchen doing something, her face calm as if nothing was wrong. I slammed the test result envelopes onto the table, then pointed at them, enunciating each word. "Sarah, you have to explain this to me, right now." My voice cracked, full of tremors. She glanced at the envelopes on the table, then looked at me with a bewildered expression, as if I were insane. "What is it, David? What are you trying to do now?" She frowned, looking annoyed. "What is it, huh?" I couldn't believe my ears. "These are the DNA test results for Sophia, Emily, Ethan, and Grace. All 4 of them. None of them are my biological children." Surprisingly, after hearing those thunderous words, Sarah just scoffed. "These ridiculous tests. You believe in those things? Of course they must be wrong. How can you believe in this nonsensical technology more than your wife's word?" Her voice was filled with contempt. I tried to remain calm, though my heart was boiling. "All 4, Sarah? How can all 4 results be wrong? How much longer do you plan to lie to me, Sarah? Tell me the truth now." I practically roared the last word. The suppression within me had reached its peak. As I raised my voice, her face suddenly contorted. The contempt instantly morphed into anger, then into an attitude I had never seen from Sarah before. She shot up, slamming her hand on the table with a bang. "You don't believe me, David? We've been together since high school. Are you going to destroy our family just because of these ridiculous pieces of paper?" she screamed. "You're the selfish one. You always put work before family. You were too busy making money, too busy with yourself that you never truly saw me. You know what? Your absence forced me to seek comfort from others. Those children, they were the only escape for me to feel alive." After uttering those words, which seemed to be both confession and accusation, she immediately grabbed a plate from the table and hurled it straight at the wall right next to where I stood, the shattering sound echoing deafeningly. I stood frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing and seeing. This wasn't the Sarah I had always loved and lived with. This was a demon. "Listen here, David," she snarled, stepping closer to me, her eyes blazing. "If you dare to make a big deal out of this, if you dare to expose this ridiculous truth, I will make sure Lily hates you to her core. I promise you that. I'll tell her you're a crazy, paranoid man who single-handedly destroyed this family. You'll lose everything. Everything. Do you understand?" In that moment, I realized one thing clearly. I was facing a complete stranger, a cruel woman ready to do anything to protect her lies, even if it meant destroying our youngest daughter. The prospect of Lily hating me, of turning her back on me, was more painful than discovering that my other 4 children weren't biologically mine. It was a fatal blow. Sarah's shock and anger, it was like a bucket of cold water thrown straight in my face. But instead of completely collapsing, I felt a flame of fury ignite within me, stronger than ever. I needed the truth. I couldn't just sit there like a fool being deceived over and over again. I began to investigate on my own. I turned everything upside down, from old boxes in the attic filled with nostalgic photos and diaries Sarah wrote in her youth, to old email files on the computer that I thought I'd never touch. I scrutinized every bill, every travel itinerary, every name that briefly appeared in her stories. Everything. I turned the whole house upside down. I must know it all. My mind reeled with 1,000 questions. Who? Why? How could she hide it for so long? The process was an excruciating torture. Every old photograph, every familiar line of text was like a knife twisting into an unhealed wound. I saw pictures of Sarah smiling with me, with our children, but now every smile carried a chilling falseness. I wondered, did she ever truly love me? Or was I just a facade, a legal father for other men's children? And every old face I glanced at, I saw a malevolent shadow lurking in their eyes, waiting to betray me. I could no longer trust anyone. My faith had completely crumbled.
And then I found an old, faded letter with messy handwriting. It wasn't sappy love notes, but fake intimate conversations, a secret date from a man. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe my eyes. My whole world collapsed once again, and this time it was even more devastating than before. The person I discovered through that letter, one of my children's fathers, was Mark, my best friend from college. He was my best man at my wedding to Sarah. He held Sophia when she was a newborn, gave Ethan his first bicycle, and was the one who always went camping with me and the kids every year. Mark was someone I trusted with absolutely no secrets. I confided in him about everything, Sarah, my life, my work, and he was the one who betrayed that trust, secretly sleeping with my wife and fathering my children. I couldn't accept it. Not only did my wife cruelly betray me for years while we were married, but even my best friend was part of this disgusting lie. I had been living in a web of deceit woven by the people I loved and trusted the most. I wondered, was there anyone left in this world I could still trust? Everything I believed was real turned out to be a play directed by them. The doubts in my heart could no longer be washed away. This discovery left me utterly numb, my trust completely eroded. But amidst that entire storm, one persistent worry still gnawed at me. My youngest daughter, Lily. She's only 14, far too young to bear the weight of this horrific truth. I wanted to protect her, to shield her from the deceitful and bitter world her mother had created. I tried to act as normal as possible in front of her, but, how can you hide it when your entire world is collapsing? Then came that fateful day. Sarah and I were arguing again. I confronted her about that bastard Mark. I demanded to know who the other despicable men had betrayed me. This time, everything exploded even more fiercely than before. Shouting, the sound of things breaking. I don't know where Lily was or when she came home. Maybe she just walked past the kitchen door. But I'm sure she heard it. She heard everything. I'll never forget Lily's face when she walked into the kitchen after the argument. Her eyes, she looked at me with an utterly unfamiliar gaze. Not the adoring eyes of my little girl, whom I used to hug every night. It was a look filled with profound shock and ultimate betrayal, and even deep hatred. She stood there, her shoulders trembling, tears streaming silently. Then suddenly she screamed. "You're liars! You've destroyed this family! I hate you both! I don't want to see either of you ever again!" Hearing those cries, I felt like a knife piercing my heart. I had tried to protect her, but Sarah's lies had shattered her world. Lily bolted out of the house, ignoring my calls. I ran after her, but she had vanished. I screamed her name, but only the wind answered. After that day, Lily locked herself in her room, refusing to eat, just sobbing uncontrollably, ignoring whatever anyone said. Sometimes I'd hear her breaking things. At one point, I even saw a small cut on her wrist. My God, she was hurting herself. My pain at that moment was indescribable. Not pain about Sarah, not pain about Mark, but the pain of a helpless father watching his innocent child self-destruct because of a lie she didn't deserve to bear. Lily became aggressive and uncooperative. When I tried to talk, she just screamed, "Leave me alone! I don't want to hear anything! Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why did Mom lie to us?" I found myself trapped between her anger and my own helplessness. This was the most tragic moment of all. The innocent child who should have lived in a happy family became the biggest victim of a cruel, deceptive drama. When Lily ran off and I had to face that overwhelming pain, I felt completely alone. Sarah was in denial, any of my friends could be a traitor, and my youngest daughter hated me. I didn't know where to turn anymore. My other children were grown, they had their own lives, and they didn't know how to properly confront their birth mother either. They tried their best to comfort Lily for me, but it seemed like things were not that easy. Then, one day, something completely unexpected happened. Sarah's parents, my children's grandparents, came to see me and my children.
I was very surprised because they've always been very private people and I hadn't told them anything about the mess my family was going through. They sat down, their aged faces filled with weariness and sorrow. They didn't beat around the bush. They looked at me, then at Sophia, Emily, Ethan, and Grace, who were sitting beside me. And my mother-in-law began to speak. "David, we're so sorry, truly sorry to you and the children for not speaking up sooner." Her voice trembled. Then they began to reveal things I had never suspected. It turned out they had known part of the truth, or at least suspected it for a very long time. They spoke of times Sarah had become strange and manipulative from a very young age, how she would try to twist the truth to get what she wanted, or how she always tried to control everything in her life. Sarah, she always wanted a perfect life in the eyes of others, my father-in-law said, his voice heavy. He wanted a successful husband, like you, a large family, but she didn't want to bear the real responsibilities. For some reason, she thought having children with other men would ensure you'd never leave her, and she would have it all. They recounted their attempts to dissuade Sarah, but she always brushed them off, even threatening to cut ties with them. "We tried, David, but she just kept running headlong into the fire. We couldn't keep silent any longer, seeing your life and the children's lives destroyed by her lies." Sitting there listening to my in-laws describe their own daughter like a stranger, I felt a new pang of pain. But at the same time, a huge burden was lifted. I wasn't crazy. What I was experiencing was real, and I wasn't alone. Having this support and information from Sarah's family was like a small light flickering in the dark tunnel I was stuck in. At least now I knew I could trust a few people in my life.
It gave me strength, and I knew I couldn't let Sarah continue to deceive and destroy my life any longer. It was time to fight. I filed for divorce. When Sarah received the papers, she went ballistic. The perfect facade she had always tried to maintain shattered, and now she had nothing left to hide. And you know what? Instead of accepting the truth or trying to atone, she switched to a new tactic. She launched a full-scale attack. Sarah hired an extremely skilled lawyer, someone who seemed willing to use any tactic to win the case. She began to tarnish my reputation. In court, she painted a completely different picture of David, a callous, selfish husband who always put work before family, and a short-tempered, domineering father who always imposed on his children and poor wife. She claimed I was the one who caused all of Lily's psychological distress, that I was the one who destroyed this family with my paranoia and lack of trust. She even exploited Lily's mental state. David forced her to hear terrible things, she said in court, feigning the image of a distraught mother. She was shocked, traumatized by David's lies. He's a danger to her and the entire family. Sarah wanted full custody of Lily, clearly to continue manipulating her or perhaps to retain some benefit from me. A bitter and dirty legal battle ensued. All the grime and sordid details were exposed, from financial matters to the most intimate aspects of our marriage. I felt utterly exhausted, simultaneously grappling with personal pain and fighting to protect my reputation. I kept asking myself if I would ever find a moment of peace in this life. But then, amidst all of that messy mess, I found an unexpected source of strength: my older children, Sophia, Emily, Ethan, and Grace. They had witnessed everything their mother had done, and they couldn't stand by. "We'll testify for you, Dad," Sophia said, her eyes resolute. "Mom tried to manipulate us many times in the past, tried to turn us against you. We'll tell the whole truth." And they did. In court, my children, one by one, stood up and testified. They recounted stories of Sarah bad-mouthing me behind my back when I was away, how she tried to sow seeds of doubt about me in their minds, and how we had always loved and supported each other. The scene choked me with emotion. Tears flowed again, but this time they were tears of pride and gratitude. That was when I knew that for over 30 years, I hadn't just lived a life full of lies, and my love and sacrifices weren't meaningless. Most importantly, I wasn't fighting alone anymore. My children's love and unity were my strongest weapons. Though not by blood, they are my family, everything I have, and for them, I will never give up. That legal battle, my friends, it dragged on, utterly exhausting me to the bone. The courtroom felt like a battlefield where every shred of my privacy, every scar of my life was laid bare for judgment, scrutiny, and whispered gossip. Even though everything was clear as day, with all evidence against her, Sarah stubbornly refused to admit fault, still trying to defame me in every way possible. But I had my children. My 4 eldest stood by me, testifying to the truth, to the love we shared. Thanks to them, I found the strength to keep fighting and live through this deceptive life.
Finally, after grueling court sessions and heartbreaking testimonies, we reached an agreement I could tentatively call justice, even if it came at an exorbitant price. Sarah and I are officially divorced, and you know what? She didn't receive a single penny of alimony from me. In fact, I even demanded she repay the child support she had fraudulently received for all those years. It was a small measure of financial justice, an affirmation that she couldn't simply deceive and profit from me. As for Lily, my youngest, the court granted me full custody. I breathed a sigh of relief knowing that at least I could protect her from Sarah's lies and manipulation. Sarah, she faced consequences not just from the law. Her own family, her parents, the ones who helped me, completely turned their backs on her. Friends and society also began to distance themselves. She is now a solitary woman, isolated by her own choices. And Mark, that so-called best friend, my relationship with him has dissolved into thin air. I never want to see his face again. Justice has been served. I won legally, I regained my honor, and I protected my children. But you know what? This feeling of victory is so bittersweet. The emotional wounds will never truly heal. I've lost faith in marriage, in the woman I loved for more than half my life, and most of all, I feel like I've lost a part of my own life. 30 years of living a lie have left a huge void that I don't know if the remaining days of my life will ever be able to fill. And Lily, she's still undergoing therapy. Our relationship is still very fragile. She's still angry, still hurting. I see it in her eyes every day. Every time she's silent or just looks at me with empty eyes, I feel helpless. I have to try every day, every hour to rebuild that bridge with her. I know this will be a long and challenging journey. So there you have it, everyone. That's my story. A story I wish I had never had to tell. Now I'm trying to focus on healing, little by little. It's not easy at all. Sophia, Emily, Ethan, Grace, and I, we're rebuilding our family. A family not based on blood or lies, but on genuine love and the harsh truth. We're spending more time together, talking more, and trying to get through this together. Seeing my children's resilience and unconditional love, I know I wasn't wrong to fight. As for Lily, my youngest, she's slowly stabilizing. She's still in therapy, and we're trying to rebuild our relationship. Sometimes she's still angry, still hurting, but at least we're moving in the right direction. It's a long and difficult journey, but I won't give up. She means everything to me. I keep asking myself, countless times, how could a woman deceive a man like that for 30 years? How could Sarah look me in the eye, look at these children, and live that lie every day without a shred of remorse? It haunts me, and I don't think I'll ever have a complete answer. Through everything that's happened, I've learned a lot. I've learned that life can throw you the most horrific shocks, knockout punches you never see coming. But I've also learned that love doesn't always require blood ties. Love is a choice, it's presence, it's sacrifice. And my children taught me that lesson in a way that was both painful and incredibly beautiful. Now I'm slowly finding peace in this new life, but the scars will never disappear. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive Sarah or if I can trust anyone else again. You, who are listening to this story, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Is there any way to completely heal after such a wound? Thank you for listening to today's story from the Guilty Notes channel. If this story resonated with you, please like, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional real-life stories and valuable lessons. See you in the next video.